we'll go ahead and start with some of the Kiswahili translations of the second part of this word, which would be the MB, or as you say, the or M. We first come to the Kiswahili word uma, U-M-A, and this word means a metal point, a pointed tool, okay? So remember that, because that is also very important. Now also, the word umba, U-M-B-A, means to give form to, shape, fashion, to make and create. Very, very important. Because if we look at it, the umma and umba, they go together. Because we can look at it as a metal point or a pointed tool used to give form, shape, fashion, make, or create. Now, as we know, the great intruder, Khnum, being the potter, we still have to make sure we introduce why pottery is used, or why the potter is used as the metaphor for what this intruder has been known to do and why he was so revered, specifically by women. In the Shivenda language, we have the word vumba, V-U-M-B-A, and it means potter's clay. Now, we have to realize that vumba and umba are basically the same word with just a tonal change, vumba. Umba and vumba. Do you understand? So then in Shivenda, we also have the word vumbeyo, V-U-M-B-E-O, vumbeyo, and it means form or shape. So we see a common theme here. But the most important element in the Shivenda language is the word vumbo, V-U-M-B-O, and it means vagina, or basically female reproductive organs. So let's put it all together. I'll start off by saying the pronunciation with the letter ku, or the word ku, meaning great, showing that it is plausible, but why I chose to also use ku, the prefix, Ku. But that ku, great, if we were to put these words or this word combination together, we get kumba. And that would basically mean the great creator who forms from clay in the Kiswahili language. So as I said, that's plausible, but I don't think it adds that extra element of what I'm trying to get at with the definition of the word. So this is why I say that the prefix ku, Ku, would be better suited, because kumba, K-U-U-M-B-A, would mean the place where the potter forms in the Kiswahili language. Now, as we say potter, we've already mentioned clay, vumba, in Shivenda. We mentioned to give form, umba, in Kiswahili, and vumbeo in Shivenda. But how does that tie in with vumbo, vagina? And why does it tie in with the potter? Well, if we look in the Chibemba language, the word kabumba literally means the potter and creator. Well, we have to look at it. A potter molds clay, going back to vumba in Shivenda. A potter creates images and things out of that clay mass. Now, in the Shivenda language, that word, as I said, the locative form of ku would be ka. So here we're going to use kavumbo, which basically speaks about the womb, okay? Because we're talking about the place of the woman's reproduction where the chopping or hacking goes on, the carving action goes on. But that word ka in Shivenda specifically means in or within. So we know that is internal. Whatever the action is internal. And this is why I say kavumbo means in the womb. So then also in Shivenda, we have the combination kavumbeo, which means in the place where clay is formed, shaped, and carved. So these are all specific definitions of who you call Khnum or Khnum. And it explains why the potter creates and where he creates, which is why I said I prefer to use the locative ku and ka over the word ku, which means great. So then, if we refer to Baba Jacob Olukoni in his great book, African Traditional Religion and Contemporary Society, on page 70, he speaks specifically about our Batwa, specifically Batwa women. And this passage says, women express gratitude to God after childbirth. Batwa women, he used pygmy, but I will use Batwa women, pray to the Creator, and he specifically spells it KHMVOUM, Kumvum, or we could say Kamvum, the same thing as the Shavenda Kamvumbeo, Kamvumbo, the same thing as the Chibemba Kabumba. Do you understand? Because as we know, the V and the B are interchangeable, as well as the W, or in this case, the sound of the U. So as we refer back to Baba John Mbiti on page 50 of the same book, he says that the Akamba names for God represent the creator, the maker, the cleaver. Now remember cleaver because just like that word ka and shavenda, we mean chop, hack, or a carving action. A cleaver carves, it does a carving action. So in Akamba, KiKuma as we call it, this word would be mumbi. M-U-M-B-I, mumbi. So if we look at it, all of these things are basically saying the same thing. It's showing where the potter creates, forms, shapes, carves, creation. Now, before I get into the full explanation of it, in the Kiswahili language, we have a word kiumbo, and it means the pot where the potter puts his tools. This is basically the same as kavumbo, which means the womb. Now we have to look at it. The pot where the potter puts his tools, if we refer that to the womb of the woman, that means the potter's tools are inside of the womb of the woman creating the creation of life. I'll get into the summation of all of these different things and what I'm saying here. But before I do that, if we actually look at it, our Bantu words, umba, boomba, vumbo, these are all actually, according to what my hypothesis or which seems to be an actual fact, these are actually the real origin of the word womb, wumba. So these Europeans took our words, knew exactly what we were talking about, or at least they had a great idea of what we were talking about if they knew not exactly, and they still implemented it into their languages right now. So what am I saying about, as I say, kumba, kavumbo, kabumba, kavumbeo, kamvum, and mumbi? The fundamental concept of kumba is that the womb is the place where the great potter forms, shapes, carves, and fashions clay to create a child. The womb, umba, is the great unknown place of water. This is why I said prior to get into the definition of the word and the breaking down of the word, when we refer back to the great Mbiti, he said that the Banyarwanda women, and they are careful to leave water ready before they go to bed so that God may use it to create children. In this place, in place of God, we will go ahead and use kuumba, kamvum, kavumbeo, kavumbo, mumbi. Okay? Is able to create the child. This is why there are so many references to water associated with this word. The word spring, well, fountain, western well of Egypt. This is what this word is talking about. And then we have that upper pool site unknown, the reason why the site is unknown is because our people were talking about the great womb. Our people were talking about where the great mother created all things and how the Nchora, as you say, Kaumba, created all things in the womb of the great mother. And in doing so, he used water. Okay. And that word that is spelled with the ending of the head and the mouth, as you say, for R, the chick, and the representation of the land or the water right there. What I pronounce this as is Kuumba Nyonye Kulu. Now, in the Shavenda language, the word for water is mvula, and it means rain and water. And it also means a leak in a pot. So what we're basically looking at is the use of water, the great water, to create the child, the creation, whether we're talking about specifically the child or all of the universe as a creation. Now, another way we can just pronounce this is KiKuma Kulu, because it says that there's the great well of Egypt, the western well of Egypt, and the upper pool, site unknown. The word Kulu in ancient KiKuma is spelled Khuru, and it is cognitive with the other BaNtu languages, Khulu, or as you see in the Kiswahili, Kuu. And that word Kulu would actually mean great. It means great ancestor. It means ancient. The word grandmother, which I love, Nkulu in isiZulu, represents the great mother. Not just mother, but the mother of mother. Do you understand? And so therefore, we're just basically talking about the waters of the great creation. And this is why when you look at a potter, he has to mold clay, but he has to keep the clay moist and damp. So he keeps water beside him, or she keeps the water beside him while he's creating or she's creating this pot or these beautiful pottery related things. So that is where the mother leaving the water by the bed comes from, symbolically. And it makes a lot of sense. Now I have to clarify, because Nyonye, it actually talks about the child suckling the mother's breast, because the water that comes from the mother's breast is the water of the child's life. It's the nourishment, which is represented as the milk. But a word that also is close to Nyonye is Nyunya, which means rain. So the rain from the mother's breast is represented to mean milk. Do you understand? So that is normally I try to throw 3 or more different definitions, but since these were so extensive as far as the detail into them, that I try not to take up too much time, I will only leave it with Khufu and Khnum. But as I said before, and this is specifically talking about Khuumba, Kamvum, it's great to translate the languages all day, but we have to make it relate to us being held down now, and relate to breaking the psychological chains and shackles that remain on our mind of us as one people. So how do I make it apply to now?